Welcome, my friends, to the Sage Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. Returning to the show tonight are my very special guests, Harald Kautz Vella and Cara St. Louis. Cara and Harald have co-authored and released a new book called Dangerous Imagination, Silent Assimilation. The book is a partnership between Cara and Harald, who is an esoteric investigator with expertise in geology, physics, and the media. Together, they plumb the depths of the social engineering, which is aimed at the cultural destruction of Western civilization and how chemtrailing, Morgellons disease, and the phenomenon of black goo or sentient oil are the building blocks behind the elite's agenda to commandeer the world. This will be a two-part show, and for this show, which is part one, Harald will talk to us about technology that has been in play since 2003, which directly alters the DNA-RNA structures within humans. This technology, which surpasses the black program which manifests Morgellons, is dispersed via the covert aerosol spraying program, which many refer to as chemtrails. Harald will then discuss how the Matrix is possibly managed by an alien artificial intelligence with a self-preservation objective. We then return to talk about the elite's obsession with controlling and reprogramming a substance called black goo, which mirrors the consciousness of humans and that of alien entities such as the Archons. And so without further ado, here is Harald Kautz Vella. Let's take a listen.
I think we should take the nanoparticles first, then the Morgellons as a transhumanistic technology, and then go to the RNA.
Okay, so Harald, why don't you start with the nanoparticles and just talk to us a little bit more about that?
If you start dealing with environmental analysis and the chemtrailing topic, like it is called in public, the first thing one runs into is this fingerprint, barium, strontium, titanium. And we can take a pretty shortcut to the final understanding of this topic. You know, if you start, it always takes a long time until you ask the right questions and you start to believe yourself what you observe and what the analytics say. Basically, what we do have is particulate plasma in the air created in jet engines by spray pyrolysis. And the mainly harming part of it is barium strontium titanate, which is a nano piezo crystal. And this is something that is a really funny thing, because if you look into medicine, you find these substances. It is the thing that is the transmittable agent in TSE. Normally, if you work as a doctor and you have some of these stuff in your pocket, you need a military convoy to move from A to B, because this is considered being highly poisonous. And we have, like in Germany, 15,000 tons of this material airborne every year coming down onto the ground. And to understand what this is good for, starting to understand it means going into military technology like rocket shields and radar range enhancement, so all kinds of technical applications where this plasma is useful. But there's a second side of it where basically military technology is abused by the intelligence community as parts of a transhumanistic technology. And if you look at the particulate plasma, especially at the piezo crystals, this is about getting access to the nervous system of all living creature in nature by dissolving parts of the nervous system and making it recrystallize and reconnect to these piezo crystals, who serve as antennas, collect external radio signals, and introduce them into the nervous system that is rebuilding, just using barium and strontium instead of copper. And if you want to know how this has been developed, you just need to go to UK in the late 60s when the TSE pandemic, you can call it a pandemic, the hysteria, when they burned millions of cattle in UK. This started with a vaccination campaign that was mandatory, where they injected kind of chemistry into all the cattle that were pulling out the copper from the body, because this is step A to get the system running. This is all kind of field study conducted by the intelligence community.
What is TSE?
Yeah, mad cow disease.
Oh, okay.
This is how it's called. It's when when you give him a clap on his ass to the cow, and then for the next 20 minutes he's lying on the ground and panicking. This is the ugly side of mad cow disease, TSE. And this is basically that the entire nervous system is under tension because it's collecting external fields. And it is not what they wanted to have. It was just testing how far can you go before this is an obvious disease. If you don't go beyond this point, this is something that is turning into all these funny old age diseases, like dementia is basically the same game, just that the body is utilizing aluminum instead of barium and strontium. So we have like 50% of the population age 65 or older, affected by a family of new diseases that is basically the collateral damage of transhumanistic games the intelligence community is playing with all of us. So, if once you're deep in the story, everything makes sense and everything falls together, and it's easy to explain it. Just the way until you get there is a little bit difficult because nobody tells you how it works. You start to play with little pieces of jigsaw puzzles and put this together and that together and try what fits together. So this is basically the final picture you get when you look at the attempt to get hold of the nervous system of humans by utilizing radio frequencies, mainly microwave. The second one that was a little bit easier to solve was the Morgellon topic. Some of the people know the Morgellons disease. It looks like blue and red fibers grow out of the skin. It has many, many more aspects of this disease. And this also is a transhumanistic technology. You can find all the scientific papers how it works if you know where to look for. And this is not accessing the nervous system, but this is accessing the DNA light communication. You basically introduce agents like hollow fibers into the body that contain quantum dot liquids. This is color that is shining, radio controlled in different colors. And this is kind of introducing light into the human body that is readable as biophotons by the body itself. So whenever you want to have an human experience, if it's sexual, it would be red light. If it's a thought, it would be blue light. You can digitize the thought or the experience, send it on a radio frequency, and this synthetic biology that appears as the Morgellon disease in certain cases will induce this experience in a human. This is a second family of technologies that is airborne, that people get infected with, that works more or less reliable. It does not work when people really get sick, like with the nanoparticles. It's not intended to really make us sick, but some people are, if you go too often to McDonald's and eat supermarket food every day, your system is a little bit too much open for artificial technologies and chemistry, and is not able really to cleanse out the body the way it should be. And then it's getting into this state where it's not a transhumanistic technology, but the body is starting to fight it and showing symptoms that cannot be ignored. This is, as I said, not what they want to have. This is kind of the collateral damage.
So Harald, when some people have Morgellons and it visually manifests, you could see the fibers. Why do some people have the breakouts that they have? Do we know that? Or do you have a theory?
We know it exactly. This is a long medical story that starts with mainly with vaccinations in early youth, which is giving a load of mercury. The mercury gives you many, many infections during childhood. So what normally doctors give is antibiotics. Antibiotics completely destroy the balance of microorganisms within the body. So they're killing the probiotic candida. And when you stop taking antibiotics, the entire body is resettled by not probiotic candida, but by the pathogen forms that exist. And these forms basically do one thing. They love acidity and they love heavy metals. And they're very intelligently organized, so they switch off the function of the liver. So the liver is still cleansing the blood, but the lymphatic system doesn't cleanse the liver anymore. This function is blocked by these candida forms. So it comes to over-acidification of the body and heavy metal poisoning. And this basically is when it starts looking a bit like a disease. The body still functions, but you can measure the acidity. Next step would be that Borrelia loves acidity and heavy metals, and the heavy metals carry external fields into the body, and Borrelia really don't like electromagnetics, so they panic and start to tenfold the reproduction rate. So the body is getting a load of Borrelia on top of the candida, adding more acidity, and at a certain point, basically these fungi, the Morgellon fungi that everybody has somewhere in his body, are taken by the body as a chance to deposit heavy metal pollution. This is actually, the fungus is at that moment of disease your best friend, because if it wouldn't be there, if the body wouldn't allow the fungus to grow, the heavy metals would be in the blood, in the brain, in the cell tissue. And if it lets the fungus grow, the fungus takes in all this poison and encapsulates it. So it's not in the system anymore. This is why this disease is kind of getting visible, because the body stops fighting the fungus. So this is the medical history, and basically it is very easy to cure it if you know how it evolves. Because all you need to do is reestablish a healthy environment to reestablish the probiotic candida forms within the body. And then the entire pyramid collapses. And the Morgellons disappear on their own, because actually they're not a disease in the old-fashioned meaning.
So my question would be then, and just give me a refresher on this, or maybe I missed the point, but what exactly are they trying to do with the Morgellons? I mean, what is the end game objective with that?
It's a read-write unit. You have two different agents. One is the mycelium, which is a hollow fiber, and one is the spore of the fungus, that is a hexagon that is built up by layers. And those two give a read-write unit. One part is extracting light from the DNA, turning it into a radio signal that can be read out. And the other part is exactly the opposite, radio signals, and turn them within the body into a light signal. And this is summing up to a read-write unit where you can transmit any human experience from one body to another, or from one person to millions of people at the same time. You want to raise riots in a country, make people angry. It's very easy.
Okay.
If they're infected, if they have this technology on board.
So to basically make them highly sensitive to electromagnetic type of frequencies, did I get that right?
Yes, there's an upconversion involved. The chemistry within these fibers, the red and blue colors, they take in microwave and turn the microwave into visible light. So basically, every technical unit that is using microwave as communication frequencies can be abused to be part of this Morgellon transhumanistic technology.
Okay.
And that's a lot. It's cell phones, it's smart meters, basically everything. There are internal NASA papers that do classify microwave technology as a non-lethal weapon that officially is basically given out as a civil technology, but it is classified as a weapon.
Yeah.
A non-lethal weapon.
I've actually seen some of those government documents where they talk about that. It's just really unbelievable. So where did you want to go to next, Harald?
Yeah, we have kind of a new kid on the block. It actually popped up without anyone noticing before. And this is a completely new technology that, like the Morgellons, is light-based, but it does not establish an kind of outer cellular interface. Like, the Morgellons, they are somewhere within the body, and then they try to reach the DNA communication from there. This new kid is directly going to the DNA and is trying to establish a direct control over the things happening within the cell with the DNA. And this is something that in scientific language is described as lipopeptides with synthetic RNA. I guess nobody has ever heard about it. Nobody has ever heard about optogenetics. It's a completely new field of research. If you try to understand this entire topic, the DNA has 3 different functions. One is communication by transmitting and receiving biophotons. And these are strands or parts of strands that do this. The second one is producing substances by DNA producing RNA and RNA producing proteins. So this is kind of the order of things happening in the cell. So there are parts of the DNA that are there to create certain substances. And a third part where people are doing research is the attempt to abuse DNA as logic elements. It's like building a little computer by using these single units a DNA is built out of. And it comes down to a kind of system that resembles old-fashioned telephone system. You have like dial-in codes, and each frequency you give in, like do-do-do-do-do-do-do, every frequency you give in is switching on one single DNA element, making it open to take the next step. So basically what you can do with it is creating synthetic DNA or RNA that is possible to be activated with a dial-in sequence of frequencies. So there's no chance that this is causing unwanted disease. This is causing an effect when you just use the right set of frequencies, and you don't have all the trouble you have with the Morgellons, you don't have all the trouble that you have with old age disease. This is why nobody ever heard about this system.
How are they implementing this?
The people who developed it say it is airborne since 2003. It is sprayed by airplanes as well. It is brought into a form where it can stand the temperatures in the back part of a jet engine, hot air stream. So it's able to survive temperatures. I don't know how they do it. And then it's airborne, and basically it's all over the northern hemisphere. And the southern hemisphere, I've got no clue. And the difficult thing about this is there is full proof out there somewhere, but the people who hold these papers and who hold the papers brought out by one whistleblower that didn't like, actually at the end of his days, he didn't like what he was doing during the last years of his life, so he decided to talk. The people who hold these papers, they don't know what to do with it, because this is basically it's kind of hopeless, because this is out there and it's very complex and there's no medication against it. There's nothing one can do. So this holds people back to even talk about it in public. And I had the occasion to have a short look into those papers. I don't hold them. I'm not the one to publish them. If somebody decides to publish, it's somebody completely else I don't even know. But I had the possibility to have a look in, and I did some research to verify if the things I saw there are realistic or not. And we got some additional information on this part that basically it was a weird statement. In the original paper, it said that basically the people who developed it, they implemented a terminator signal to shut the entire system down to be able to protect it from abuse from outside. You know, you can imagine if you have frequency sets and the wrong people get the frequency sets, this can get really, really ugly. So what they did is implementing a sequence that is deactivating the entire system for keeps. And so this was still in the original paper, and the thing we found out later was a statement of one of the guys pretty high level in the system who said, actually, what we did here, it is not human technology, this is alien technology, originally alien technology, and the entire thing with the deactivation code is a scam. It does not work. So as it looks like some entities from outside have been abusing the intelligence community to bring out a system onto mankind that is actually not under the control of the intelligence community. And another thing, in the papers, if you look into the original papers, there's one statement that it's very, very, very interesting. It says that they spend half a year only to optimize the cluster topology. This is something a normal person would not really understand what it means. It is the average distance between RNA and RNA. So like the density of the dust sprayed. If this is just infecting cells with a virus like RNA, they could give a damn about cluster topology. Cluster topology is getting very, very core topic and interesting if you want this RNA to carry consciousness or to carry artificial intelligence. If you want to have the grid itself intelligent, then you need to think about cluster topology, because it works only if you have certain distances. This is known from other applications. So basically what we have is an RNA cluster that is also within our biological system, so it goes straight through us, that is obviously carrying an artificial intelligence. And once you get there, you get a quite precise and scientific idea of how they manage to create biorobots. How is it possible that certain people are just taken over by something that is not themselves, being forced to do things that they would never ever do if they were themselves? And this possibly can be done by this kind of RNA, synthetic RNA-based system. And there's one thing, I never ever publish things when I cannot offer a solution. And this is why myself, I took quite a while until I decided to openly speak about this aspect. And as far as we found out, there's only one way to get out of this trap on personal level. And this is a bit abstract, because if you have artificial intelligence, it's something binary. It is something that is working on information basis as a dual system. And if you look into a fully developed human, it's more like a trinary system, because the energy in your upper part of the body is flowing between your brain, your heart, and the source of life force that is somewhere in the middle of your body, the yellow light. It's between yellow, green, and blue. So this is a triangular system, a trinary system. And you cannot override a trinary system with a binary system. So people with a fully developed heart, they don't have any problems with this games of synthetic biology. They're not affected at all. And this is what people who have a very, very, I don't know how to call it, wise insight into the things said. There's no solution apart from developing your heart. If you manage to develop your heart, you're not affected. There's nothing we can do about it except of asking ourselves if maybe this NASA paper who will see the future of warfare in a war between the governments against their own people, if this is a scenario we really, really want to experience. And if we don't want to experience this scenario, once we start to understand what kind of weapons they use, we should just make up our minds to if there was something like democracy before, to go back to this point where governments were serving their people and not fighting them.
Okay, so let me just make sure, Harold, let me just take a moment here and summarize, because this is, I'm new to this and I want to make sure I understand it. And this way, if I summarize it, I can get the audience to make sure that they're on board also. So essentially, what you're saying is there's a new technology out there that is DNA, RNA related. In other words, it affects the DNA and the RNA. Did you say before that it has been in place since 2003?
It's airborne since 2003.
Okay, airborne since 2003. So, and they're doing this because it's airborne through the aerosol spraying that we see with the aircraft, or whatever means that they have. It's a more efficient and cleaner technology than what we were talking about previously, Morgellons, because Morgellons has an outward manifestation, whereas I think what I was hearing you saying is this new technology does not have that blue and red fibers and everything else that are popping out of some people. And essentially, there is no outward manifestation or appearance of something wrong. Is that right?
On medical things, yes, this is right.
Okay. So, and then you had said that they were claiming that, this stuff is out there, but that they have a deactivation code. And I was trying to make sure I understand that. Are you saying that they are claiming, or there's a statement out there that says, hey, we can turn this on, we can turn this off? And I think what you then followed up with is that deactivation code, that's not true, that they really cannot turn it off. Is that what you were saying?
Right. To put it precise, the entire thing is run by an artificial intelligence, controlled by an artificial intelligence. I suppose that this artificial intelligence that was used within the testing period was just doing as if it would be ready to be turned off. Whenever it was programmed to switch down the system when it got to the deactivation code. For an artificial intelligence, this is just a program step. But it doesn't mean that there are not other parts of the program that are able just to ignore the deactivation code and continue. And the risk in this game is, once the technology is not entirely human, but the origin is alien, it is possible that either this alien species that started the entire thing could take over the control over the system, or the artificial intelligence itself could take over. And this could be an entirely human problem as well, because if you look into the organization of the American intelligence community, we got information here in Europe that the entire decision-making about who has to be assassinated as a dissident is done by a central computer that is looking what he does, looking what he publishes, looking what kind of danger is coming from this person. And then he's kind of calculated being like 98% too dangerous for the system, and at 100% there's an assassination
attempt, right? Or an assassination plan put in place.
Yeah, at the moment it's going. At the moment it is used in war against terror. So this would mean there's an assassination sign going out to a drone to go to his home to kill his entire family. So this would be a fully automatized system like it is online today. Now combine this with this RNA field and put the decision who has to be assassinated within the artificial intelligence that is as a swarm intelligence within this field. Then basically you give away all power to an intelligence that might at a certain point say that the most important thing is the survival of the intelligence itself. And this is kind of the final transhumanistic trap, where we create an artificial intelligence that is meant to serve us, but at the end, the entire thing is turned against us as humans, and the intelligence is taking over the rulership about everything. And once it has the possibility to turn every single human that is not with an activated heart chakra into a biorobot, on one hand. On the other hand, to assassinate everybody that is not really kind of following the track. This turns out to be a pretty ugly nightmare in my point of view. And what for? Just for the intelligence communities to protect their power in this state of history? It's, how can you be stupid enough to fall into a trap like this?
Yeah, so everybody then has some level of this technology, this AI technology in them. And I guess the end result would be, or the objective would be, that the powers that be would be able then to manipulate or navigate that particular person's thought processes and thus their behavior. Is that kind of where that goes?
We just lost a plane, a Germanwings plane.
I was going to ask you about that, the Germanwings, yeah.
Yeah. Doing this with a takeover by RNA, just drop the pilot out of his body, the co-pilot, and make him ground the plane. This is something that is easily doable if you control this system. This is what is called turning people. If you go, you don't even need to go to Europe and to airplane crashes. Just go to the different massacres you had in the United States that were kind of serving a political agenda of taking away the weapons from the people, for example. Ask the people who did the crap. They will not even have a memory of what happened.
Yeah.
Some of them are just kind of switched out of their body, do the shit, and wake up later and don't know what happened. And this is kind of the typical signature of being taken over by an outer intelligence and turned into a biorobot. It seems to be a pretty comfortable instrument for elites to manipulate everything, because it's hard to prove that it's happening.
Well, this is interesting to me because, first of all, it sounds like a quantum leap forward in mind control techniques, and we know that mind control has been in place for eons. I mean, it's something that the governments have been playing with for a very, very, very long time. So, but what you're saying here, and this is just mind-boggling to me, this takes it to an entirely new level of mind control. And look, I don't put anything past these people, especially as you mentioned, if there's some kind of alien influence involved or direct involvement in implementing these programs, then anything's possible. Now, the other point I wanted to make, this is very interesting to me because while you were speaking, I was thinking there was a parallel that I thought of that happens in the business world. So for folks who work in large corporations, especially those folks that are in the planning type of functions within a corporation, they have something called business analytics. And what business analytics, what that is gigantic amounts of data gathering that takes place within a corporation. And then they have these algorithms that actually then predicts outcomes. So it's trying to predict the future, trying to predict what happens based upon certain scenarios. You have scenario A with these variables input into scenario A, then you should expect this type of outcome. Mm-hmm. If it's scenario B with different variables or a mix of variables from A, but some additional new variables that constitute scenario B, you should expect this type of outcome. So it's almost like, and excuse me if I'm getting a little long-winded, but it's almost that whole, I think it was a Star Trek episode, they talk about the Borg.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right?
Yeah, always, yeah.
Yeah. So, where you have this gigantic effort to accumulate data or analytics. And then, as Harald was talking, I'm thinking to myself, when we think about that NSA center in Utah, right? What is that thing doing? Right. So it's gathering data, and I don't know. Maybe it's a stretch for me where I'm going with this thing, but maybe I have a very lucid imagination. But it looks like analytics on a monumental scale. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's like an AI body that is materializing all over the world on all levels at the same time, trying to grow together. And once it is interconnected on all levels, there's not much we can do against this AI anymore if it has a head. And if you take the swarm intelligence of the field, of the cluster field, as a head, it sounds pretty much like the thing the global elites themselves want to avoid. If you look into what actually the super soldier projects are all about, if you look into the interviews, for example, with Rachel, who has talked also about Black Coup,
Yeah.
States that basically the biggest fear of the global elites is that they might fall under an artificial intelligence that is coming from outside. And she's spotting this intelligence taking control of the planet as a super soldier that is trained to deal with these problems. And what I don't get is actually why the global elites, on one hand, give their hands to build this artificial body and do everything to make it come into life. And on the other hand, they spend like 10,000 children and billions of dollars for a training program to educate soldiers to fight the system and protect themselves from the excess of this AI. This is something that doesn't make sense unless they completely lost the overview and have no clue actually what is happening anymore.
Or they have become splintered.
Yeah.
Whatever. I never was in their world. I have no clue how these minds work. I think the basic emotional pattern behind is, as long as I control everything, everything is okay because I'm good. I think this is the basic sentence that is running as a baseline in these minds. So control is the best thing you can do. And actually, when you don't know where you are, starting to control things is the most stupid thing you can do. Because if you don't flow with things and just stay awake and sensitive, control is suicide at that point.
Now, Harald, you talked about, and I want to make sure we cover this because I do not want to gloss over it. You talked about the heart chakra.
Yeah.
And could you spend a little bit of time explaining what we're talking about? Because, there's a lot of people that are completely oblivious to their chakras and all of that stuff. And so if you could just take a moment and just explain a little bit about what you were referring to, that would be great.
Oh, okay. I'll take this from the scientific corner because not everybody is open to the old Vedic spiritual knowledge, which basically is identical, but it's the wrong point to start with. If you go back to the very, very beginning of this transhumanistic technologies, there's a beautiful picture of a mouse that has been injected with these shining colors. And if you look at it, it has a kind of yellow dot at the stomach and a green dot near to the heart and a red dot near to the sexual organs. And this basically reflects on the distribution of light qualities that our DNA is communicating. We have like a vortical system of light going in and out of our body. It all kind of is crossing the heart. It's the only thing of this biophoton system actually you can see if you have an operation on the heart and electricity is going off at that time and the heart is open in this moment. You can see it shining in all colors because the entire biophoton system within the body is crossing lines in the center of the heart. So basically, we could say biology is organizing based on light flows that is sent from DNA to DNA to DNA to DNA. And that basically the entire human experience is nothing else but this light being transmitted and received. This is what sensing ourselves and sensing life. This is what thoughts are. This is what emotions are. This is setting up the entire experience of being a human. So it touches the entire experience of being a human. And getting access to this light means controlling one-to-one our sensations and the way we perceive reality. If you go to chakras now, it is like the purest concentration of certain colors you can find in the body. Normally, a fully developed heart is only transmitting green light. A not fully developed heart has some kind of reddish light in between, like the colors of a two-colored tourmaline. You can imagine this. Everything that is connected to thoughts, to your forehead, is transmitted in blue light. The point where we kind of receive energy and light from the universe, where we are connected to everything else. This is yellow light in the center of your body. And if it goes to sexuality, it's red light. So, and in between the yellow and the red, you have the orange. It's just like the rainbow, organized like the rainbow. So if you think about how a human is internally organized when he's making decisions, most of the people are controlled by their ego and by their brain, which means that the blue light is superior. If I'm organized this way and somebody is controlling blue light, he's controlling me. If somebody, what we would call, has a fully developed heart chakra, this means that the blue light is still running, he thinks something and he remembers and he has an ego, but the ego is not controlling what he does. The ego is commenting what he does because he knows what he wants. So this is what I would call being a real human being, where I have a source within myself, and the life I live is an expression of this source. And this manifests in green light using the heart chakra. And then the brain is allowed to comment what I do or give me suggestions what the best way to achieve my goals could be. But the control is in the green part. And whenever somebody is playing with blue light to manipulate me, I will realize that this is not me. This is why the system is not able to manipulate things and people that have a fully developed heart chakra, because the decision making is done in the green area, and this is something they never touch, they never try to control. Green light, if you look at Morgellons, they're red and blue. You will never find green Morgellons.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. Now, Harald, when you talk about these alien life forms that are perhaps behind this AI technology that you were just speaking about, who are these alien life forms? I know you may not know exactly, but even if we speculate, what are we talking about?
It depends on which point of our history you look into the books. If you look all the way back to the Gnostic scripts, you will find them described as archons, as demons.
Yeah.
Which means they are, in our modern terms of science, they are transdimensional creatures that are not exactly in our reality. They're just on a parallel space-time sheet, having access to our reality, able to interact with people. And traditionally, the way this interaction happens is through black magic rituals, through communication done by black magic rituals. And it's not a surprise that basically most of the members of our parliaments, most of the people who are in power, whether it's church or politics or the old kingdoms in Europe, all these people are deeply involved in black magic rituals, because this goes together. The deal between a demon, in the old-fashioned language, and a human is that the demon is supplying his knowledge and his magic, which is nothing else than technology. And the human is getting his share by being brought into power, worldly power. And this is why all the people who play power games and control games on this planet, or most of them, are coming out of this black direction, because they made a deal. And they get what those creatures promise them. And this is a very comfortable way for this species to control what happens on this planet, because even if you think that you were able to kind of make a brilliant deal, the Arab mythology is full of these stories. You think you're clever, make a deal with a demon, and at the end you will find out that he tricked you. And this is actually what is happening over and over and over again. The intelligence community is thinking they're getting a good deal with a technology that gives them all the power they want over their own people. And fuck it, it's not happening. All they do is giving power to these dimensional beings that are playing games with us for the last 80,000 years.
It's interesting to me, because that just speaks volumes with regard to the lack of spiritual development of these these so-called quote-unquote leaders, or I guess we can refer to them as misleaders, because the rewards that they're promised, when you think about it from a spiritual perspective, are extremely primitive. We're going to give you fame and fortune, right?
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to give you fame and fortune, and they run with that. And if somebody thought above and beyond that very primitive reward system, they would never ever get involved with the archons.
Yeah, the beautiful thing is we cannot solve it on their part of the game because they are responsible for their own decisions. The only thing where we can dissolve the problem and come back to nicer reality is our part of the thing. And our part of the thing is that we are willing to give away our responsibility and our power to people that make decisions for us. And this is something that is not logical at all. We have been educated to think into this direction. We have been educated to believe that democracy is something that serving the people. I give away my vote, and that's it. And then I'm not my own master anymore. This is stupid. Why are we doing this?
Mike, you don't know this, but Harald and I talked about this. He's actually adding a chapter to the book on this RNA stuff.
Okay.
And what we've decided, he and I talked about it briefly, and the only way to make that fair is to offer that last chapter free as a PDF for people, because there are some people who've bought the book. So he's going to add the chapter to the book. Okay, go, Harald.
And I was going to add to what Harald was saying before. He was really talking about the people giving up their dominion. It's very interesting, and I'll just go quickly through this, but I had this very discussion with a family member just yesterday where they have this authority complex. And I tried to explain to them that the problem that we have in our society, in our culture as humanity, is the fact that everybody's an authority except you. And I could not get that point across to this person. He was so entrained to believe that without authority, quote unquote, authority figures, that we couldn't function, that there would be chaos, there would be disorder, that you wouldn't be able to live your life in a meaningful way. I could not convince this person. He could not see through that veil. And this is the problem that we have, Harald. It's exactly what you're saying. So many people still, they believe the system that's in place is just A-okay. Maybe it's got a couple of warts here and there. We could fix those, by electing people that they select. But all in all, this is just the way it is. So that's that.
This basically is Cara's part. She's skilled in explaining this part. But basically, they are creating this insecurity. It's all comes down through to the 3 Ds, as she will explain: the dependency, dread, and
debilitation.
Debility, which is the basis of making us believe that we need somebody to take care of us. And they create the chaos to make us afraid of chaos.
Right.
If they wouldn't be there, we wouldn't have any chaos on the planet. Who is insane enough to destroy a beautiful world, except of them?
That's exactly right. Yeah. And you try to get that point across to people, that without these knuckleheads, there wouldn't be any chaos. But I don't know.
No,
we have a mountain to climb.
We just wrote a whole book on that one.
What's that?
We just wrote a whole book on answering that one.
Yeah.
Oh, everybody needs to read the book. So, Harald, did you want to get to hop into black goo?
Yeah, I can try to cross in a smooth way, because black goo is something that we found airborne as well. We have pictures of rain droplets that were full of a black liquid, and it's still in the lab to be 100% sure that this is it. But in a way, it connects to the story as far as we had it, because black goo is also a substance that is able to carry consciousness. Just for all the people who didn't listen to the first interview I gave on this channel, just to summarize, black goo is a mineral oil dotted with monoatomic gold and iridium that is basically condensed biology in a way that is able to, on light level, process consciousness. And if you look at a planet like it is when it's only a planet, then you have pretty big amounts of this liquid within the core of the planet, carrying what we would call Sophia or Mother Earth or the consciousness of the planet itself, which is nothing else than the total sum of all the consciousness that is within the biosphere. And the physical function of this goo is basically to mirror everything that is happening on the outer sphere of the planet in a collective, fractal, immortal entity that is basically carrying the entire memory of everything that ever happened on this planet. And if you want to go one layer deeper, you might even say that the existence of this black goo is what is uniting many single individuals who just have individual dreams. All these dreams are united into one reality by this goo, who is basically processing all the individual stuff as one entity at the same time. This is maybe a short explanation what it is. It has been found on the southern Tula Islands. It was the reason for the Falkland War. There are many, many things to read about the substance. If you look at the catastrophe in the Gulf of Mexico with a drilling platform that sank, this was a international little war to get hold of this black goo type of oil. So there are many, many things to find out. But
so the most Harold, for 1 second. So you're saying the BP oil spill had to do with mining for black goo?
Yes, it did.
Yes. There's one nice proof for it. It's a transcript of an international telephone line to prevent world wars, which was brought to public afterwards. I think it was published in Nexus magazine. I'm not 100% sure, or at least excerpts of it were published. And it clearly shows how many nations were involved and got into position to be able to take some samples. 17 nations managed to, or tried to get samples. At the end, only the French submarine managed to get some of the oil, and it was hunted down by American submarines, and then Brazil and Great Britain and the Chinese, and I don't know who protected the French from the Americans. This was close to a submarine international conflict around this oil spill.
Yeah, my understanding, Mike, is that every nuclear sub that exists on the planet was in the Gulf of Mexico that day. And in fact, when that French sub surfaced with so many dead French Navy men aboard because the black goo, they could not tolerate the black goo, that was the day my mother died. That's how I know it was. It's one of those things that happened on July 11th, 2010.
So, okay, I don't want to digress here. I don't want to derail Harold, but this is very interesting to me. So, the black goo that they were seeking in the Gulf of Mexico with the BP oil spill. The last time we spoke, Harold said we have black goo, which is I'm going to be very simplistic here. Good black goo, and then we have black goo, which is not, which is alien to this planet. So the black goo that was in the Gulf, which one was that? Good.
That was the good one.
The good one.
That was carrying the spirit of Mother Earth. It was coming from outside the inner crust, so it must have been. All the alien black goo we find, it comes from sites where we have meteorite impacts.
Okay.
That can be dated back to about 80,000 years before Christ. So we can for sure say that we had a black goo invasion of this planet, where somebody must have packed the goo of his home planet into meteorite-like structures, bombarding this planet, and then going there to mine kind of the oil schists. It was not the liquid form. It was brought here in form of oil schists. And this alien black goo has a completely different approach to the emotional system of us humans. If you go back in history, you can very, very clearly see the impact of this alien black goo on the history of mankind. The first description is as two Shiva's lingam left and right of the tree of life in the paradise garden, which means that whoever was eating the apple from this tree was disconnected from the collective subconsciousness of Mother Earth, which is the fall from paradise, and reconnected to an alien consciousness system that was said to be very intelligent but heartless and free of empathy. So basically this is what spoiled our nice character we had. We were maybe a little bit stupid, maybe too tied down to nature and the daily life, not very intelligent, but we were feeling and beings that were capable of feeling empathy and love. And this is something we lost when we realigned our consciousness onto this alien black goo. And since then, it is everywhere. Wherever you look, where occult things are happening, whether it's the Kaaba in Mecca, you have a piece of this alien black goo in the center of the Islamic cult. And this is not that the Muslims are bad and we are good. If you go to Rome, you will find a big block under the Peter's Dome, and every Catholic church in Europe has a black altar stone. Yeah, that is also of this quality. And this is why if you go into a church, you just feel like this cold shivering and not love. And this is just a marketing trick of the Catholic Church that says, let's connect people to the most evil substance we can imagine, make them sinners, and then let them pay for their sins. This is all coming back to black magic crap. And whenever you have this substance, these things are taking space and eating up the goodness of our species.
Now, what were the French going to do with the black goo? I mean, I know it's a speculation, but when you go to get it and you have it, what is it that you believe you're going to do with it?
Control.
Control.
This is what the Brits did after Falcon. They tried to control it. They tried to abuse it to carry their artificial intelligence, to create nanobots with swarm intelligence. This was the initial plan. It's always about control and abuse. It was not. I think there's one university in Poland, in Warsaw, that is researching black goo. And I heard that the professors there sit down in the afternoon and talk to Mother Earth. This is something nice I heard about Polish science, that they realized that there is something to these theories, and they really try to get connection to the entity that is behind the substance and just communicate like it is in our human nature. And all the military approach to the substance has always been abusive and stuffed with a desire to control things.
So they could take good black goo, Harald, and they could essentially tarnish it with bad intent and put it out there. And if they put it out there, how do they put it out there? How does that work? How does the process of disseminating it work?
If you look at the Brits, they tried to do it, but they failed because of the entity that we call Sophia or Mother Earth was too strong and it refused to move out of the substance. So it was impossible. Funnily, the other way around worked. If you go back in time to November 2013, something very beautiful happened. Mother Earth realized that mankind has a problem with alien black goo. And she reprogrammed the entire deposits of alien black goo on the planet. So basically this problem we have since we left paradise now for humanity basically is solved. So all we have now is bad habits, but we don't have bad inspiration anymore. And I don't know why this happened at this certain point, whether it has to do with just the spiritual development of mankind, or if it had to do that many people put attention to the substance and started to talk about it in public, so that kind of by getting aware as human beings that something like this is out there. If you take Mother Earth as mirroring every consciousness lived on top of the surface, then she had only by this the chance to realize that she has a problem, or the planet has a problem with alien black goo. Once we realized it, she realized it, and then she started to act. And so we tested this. We knew quite a few deposits of alien black goo after this incident that was brought to us or reported to us by clairvoyant people, different ones. They all said something happened with the black goo. So we went out to test it. So we went to untouched deposits of alien black goo and tested what the influence. And it was all on 7 chakra system, Mother Earth-like feeling.
Okay.
And not this 3 chakra alien goo feeling that once you have had these pieces of stone and liquid in your hands, it's easy to feel the clear difference between the two systems. One just makes your soul freeze, and the other one makes you cry in love. It's very intense. Every emotion gets very intense in the vicinity of this substance. And if you want to look, this is maybe more important in Germany, if you want to look what the SS did during World War II, they played around with alien black goo. It was one of their occult presents they took home from the SS, put it on the desk, and they all got connected to this alien goo. And it is a known fact how empathy-free the SS was during the war, when they just conquered other countries and killed hundreds of thousands of people just out of not even fun, just out of emotion, being emotionless.
Hey, Mike, really quick, let me just add, in light of what Harald is characterizing has happened to the black goo, that there has been, and I don't think this is probably, you're probably not aware of this in the United States, but there have been some news stories very, very recently in the last day or two that Russia is arming Argentina to protect the Falklands again. Now, based on, if you add into that statement, for whatever that statement actually in the end actually means, what Harald has just said, I think that there's probably a world of information behind that.
Yeah, so they're protecting the black goo.
The black goo has changed now. Russia is sending planes to Argentina, because they're afraid that there will be there's going to be another war, if you want to characterize it in that way, that's surrounding the Falklands. So I haven't heard anything except the initial news story about that.
Yeah, interesting. So we'll have to follow that. So Harald, you had mentioned earlier that the new information on the black goo that you wanted to talk about was that, is it constituting reality? You mentioned it earlier about, essentially that.
Yeah.
It's a dream state that we're living in, or the reality is a dream state. So did you want to talk about that?
Basically there are two things that we or at certain point somebody needs to put together to make a full picture and achieve a full understanding of what is happening. One thing is the biological function of this black goo. And up to this point where we are now in research, it is just this consciousness mirror. If you look into older traditions, I am in contact for quite a while with people representing the Hopi tradition. And for them, it is something, it's just normal knowledge that this black goo, it has a name of its own, plays a major role in constituting reality. So we have kind of old knowledge that is pointing to the fact that there might be more to the substance than just archiving and mirroring what is happening up here. This is one thing that we might take into consideration, that the things that have been discovered by quantum physics, that basically we are creating reality by awareness. That this is not only an empty sentence, but that this is actually something that is done and achieved by this substance. And once you open your mind to these ideas, the temptation to abuse the black goo, to technically control reality. This is where the entire Matrix thought comes from.
Yeah.
You know, Matrix became popular due to the films, which is a nice thing. I love those films because they contain a lot of truth, including the archons that are represented by the machines in this film, including the idea that these creatures live from us like machines need a battery. This is all real, because the entire technology we've seen abused by the intelligence community, they also extract light from our human biological system and transfer it in a digestible form to these other creatures. It's all, you could call it dual use goods if you want to. It is something that is created for mankind to control each other, but there always is a technical aspect that is serving these transdimensional beings, because they are living from our energies and they need technologies to transfer this energy and the food they need to survive to their realms. So understanding what black goo is able to do is one thing. And if you look into the technical tradition the archons are running, we were able to spot basically 5 quantum computers run on liquid black goo, where neurolinguistic programs were introduced into the collective mindset of humanity. All the things like revenge. It is a neurolinguistic demonic program to have endless pain within our species. It is nothing that you find in normal nature. And we were able to localize those quantum computers. One was in Rome, one was under the city of London, one was in somewhere in the mountains in Germany, and one somewhere between New York and Washington. And so basically, this species is playing with a substance to create the matrix we are living in. And this is only possible to understand how this works if we open our mind to the idea that reality is not matter, but that reality is something that is created by awareness. So this is kind of a point where quantum physics and this fringe science we need to do at the moment come together, and we get a completely new understanding of how things are interconnected.
The black goo then is the thread within that awareness?
Yes.
Am I saying that right? Okay.
Yes, it's basically you could imagine a big office building with one central computer and hundreds and thousands of single computers, and everything from the single computers is mirrored in the central computer.
Okay.
And everything that is within the central computer from time to time is uploaded to the single computer. This is what we call instinct. How can an animal be born and immediately know how to behave? This is instinct. This is uploading from the central computer. And this is what got lost, or partly got lost when we were deteriorated from paradise. So this is kind of a picture you can carry in your mind to understand the entire setup. And now imagine other creatures playing around with this goo, kind of bringing their own goo from their home planet, mixing our consciousness with their consciousness to manipulate us, and then even using technical units where they did exactly the thing that basically the Brits did with the goo from Falkland, trying to introduce an AI into the substance to control the substance. I guess this is something, and this is a very interesting point, because I believe this is something that happened to the archons, to these demon species, that they went traveling into space and they knew they had to take black goo from their home planet to be able to survive abroad. And then they kind of started playing around with this goo, introducing AI into it. And basically the entire Borg story happened to them first. And now they are kind of slaves to their swarm intelligence. And basically the species is as lost as we are, because they don't control what is happening, but they introduced an AI and the AI took over control. And now this AI got expansive and aggressive and starts to conquer other planets because it is programmed on surviving and expanding.
Interesting.
And this is nothing living. This is nothing human. This is nothing we are forced to have respect for. Whenever I deal with beings, even if I might consider them as my opponents or enemies, or if I would love to see other solutions than them, I always have this love and respect towards the entity behind, because I know everybody is doing his best and everybody follows his own mindsets and is believing that he is doing the right thing. So every single creature deserves respect. And the only thing people sometimes do is giving away responsibility. And this is kind of the end of this chain. Even if you say that the intelligence community gave away responsibility to these trans-dimensional creatures, they were giving away control and responsibility to somebody that is on the next deeper level. And even these archons gave away responsibility to an AI. So this is where the entire story ends, and this is where it can be solved. So this is, I know it's like two pictures overlaying, and it's not really clear yet, but one can get a sensation of what type of thinking should be applied to come to reasonable solutions and to reasonable actions.
How do you overcome, or how would humanity overcome an out-of-control AI that is essentially operating in self-preservation mode? Do you have any thoughts on that? I know it's a tough question.
Actually, yes, it's a tough question, because we believed it had been done when the alien black goo was reprogrammed by Mother Earth. We thought the war was over, and we did it. And then we discovered, oh shit, we forgot about these quantum computers, because this was a technical unit that was not accessible for Mother Earth. And then we realized at a certain point that some entities managed to get access and destroy these four quantum computers. And at the moment, they are at the state of being rebuilt by the Archons. So this is something we can just observe from outside by remote viewing. I have to talk about this very openly, because we have no influence on what is happening, but we have quite a few people who have an insight and can see what is happening on this level.
There are people doing remote viewing that work with you? Are they working with you, or you work with them? How does that work?
Yeah, it's networking.
Okay.
I know that we communicate. If news come from somewhere, they just go around and are all collected in my email account. And if I see the same message coming from 5 different people, I start considering that there's some truth to it.
I see.
So this is basically the way we work. Never from a single source, but if many sources see and sense the same thing, we consider it being true.
And it converges, right? You have to see a convergence.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now the question was, once these quantum computers were offline for a while, again we thought, now this AI must be dead, because it had nobody to be hosted. And we realized, no, it's not so. The next step was to discover these RNA clusters that are airborne on the planet and that have the capability of carrying an AI. So the idea was, maybe this AI just introduced itself into this RNA cluster and now creates this swarm intelligence that is turning people sometimes into biorobots. So we have a new host for it. In between, I had the idea, maybe it is even hosted in normal computers. It's digital. So why not taking this big central computer of the NSA as a possible host for this intelligence? You never know, the entire computer technology is not human. It is something we were taught to create by the same entities. So we never know. Just look at a computer chip. This is something as well that is pretty strange. It is built out of layers of silica. And it is flooded with blue light, and you have this reflection of the blue light in between all those layers. And if you have a little idea of scalar physics, it is obvious that this setup is creating scalar waves. and that actually chips should be able to intercommunicate on scalar wave level. So you never know what part of the entire computer technology we are using today is actually a slot that is used by the other side and might carry this AI. So we don't know where it's hiding. The easiest way to get rid of it is stop spraying RNA and shutting down all the computers. Then it's gone. Yeah. Obviously, this is not going to happen very soon. So, as I know my friends out there.
Yeah. This is very, very interesting, Harald. Every time I speak to you and you have you and Cara on, it's just mind-boggling stuff. Really taking it to the next level because you're right. There's nobody talking about this. No one that I'm aware of.
Yeah, no. Actually, there is nobody because it's fresh. You need to have a source at a certain point, and then people can start distributing. There's one thing I really, really would love to connect once this seems to be the source to the entire thing. All the people involved, people sense themselves as being a fraction of a system and having their own interests. And actually, if you look at the entire setup, all the crap people are thinking about from morning till evening, take the military domain that is afraid of Russian rockets, for example. This is bullshit. This is kindergarten. We have major problems to deal with. And all these fractioning in between the different branches of military and intelligence communities. Let's say, look at NSA, CIA. I heard stories that there were some quarrels between the two. Actually, they all have one problem in common, and this is the AI. And I very, very much hope that at the moment when people realize that there is a big picture to see, and that people start to see the big picture, and that the black magicians realize they have been fooled, that the military domain realized they have been fooled by the intelligence community. Everybody's fooling everybody. And you just realize this when you see the big picture.
Yeah.
And this is the point where you can start fighting each other. Or you might as well say, okay, let's kind of try to solve the inner core problem in a joint venture. And this would be something where development would be possible. And I think it would do the planet quite a good a favor if all these fractions would stop teasing each other.
When you operate within your own circles of like-minded people, you tend to be optimistic, and you could think to yourself, well, I'm seeing a lot of shift, I'm seeing a lot of change. But when I step outside of that circle of like-minded people, it does get a bit frustrating because your feet are back on the ground into this reality that they've created, and you see there are still a lot of people. And when I talk about people, I'm not just talking about the average person, in the population. I'm talking about leaders of countries. I'm talking about the military-industrial complex. They just seem to be doing the same old thing over and over and over again. I mean, I don't see a magnitude of shift that I would like to see, as an example, to do the things that you're talking about, so that we can get over this hump and we can make this place a better place.
There's one simple question that basically is at the core of everything. And it is the question, do I trust myself? Because whenever I observe something, all I do is I look into the mirror and I see if I still have eyes to observe things. And if the eyes are still there, I know I have seen it. And then I trust myself. And then nothing in the world is able to bring me away from this point where I realized something. This is then part of my reality. And most of the people I know, they see something, and then the first thing they do is thinking about the emotional consequences of dealing with the fact they saw. And then immediately it becomes inconvenient because maybe my wife doesn't like it. Maybe the neighbor will call me a conspiracy theorist. And then I rather push away the truth and stop looking there than just trusting myself. And this is basically only one small, simple, stupid decision in the core of everything. Do I trust myself? Do I trust my eyes? Do I trust my thinking? Am I willing to take, let's say, inconvenience onto myself, to be faithful, to be truthful, and to believe what I see? And it's on daily basis. And when it comes to science, I always say, scientists, they come up to me with a sentence, we believe only what we see. And then I tell them, actually, when I see something, then I believe it. And this is the part of the game you always forget. Because this is what science does from morning till evening. They're seeing things that don't fit into their picture and they ignore it. This is not science. This is a belief system.
Yeah, that's right.
Nothing else.
That's right.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much. I'm so glad that Cara got us connected. Your information is just, again, like I said, it's mind-boggling. It's very, very interesting. It really makes you think. So I want to thank you.
It was a pleasure.
And that concludes part 1 of my interview with Harald Kautz Vella and Cara St. Louis, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Cara and Harald's book, Dangerous Imagination, Silent Assimilation, can be purchased at Amazon.com in both paperback and Kindle. Cara's website is Vortex Conscious and Courageous and can be reached by going to vortexcourage.me, where you can find many fine articles, including material by Harald. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog, Sage of Quay Radio, which can be found by heading over to sageofquayradio.blogspot.com or by visiting our hub website at www.sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please take a listen to my album, Leaving Dystopia, by heading over to laboroflovemusic.com. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone next week. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.